What's going on, Archivists? It's your boy Varney, and welcome to the Meta Snapshot, the series that will serve as your one-stop shop for analyzing the Grand Archive metagame. Every episode, we're going to look at the major tournaments that happen, whether it's an Ascent, it's a regional, it's a store championship, and we're going to do a deep dive into the topping and winning list to see what they're playing, if they got any spicy tech choices, and just to kind of see what the meta looks like. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Quicksilver Cup that happened in Auckland, New Zealand, approximately a week and a half ago from the time of me recording this. So let's hop into it. So here we have the Quicksilver Cup that happened on August 7th with 80 players. If we take a look at the class breakdown, we've got the dark bar here on the left for the overall, and then the lighter bar on the right, which is the amount of decks that made it in the top cut. You already see Warrior, Tamer, and Assassins got all the representation. Yeah, I mean, there's not bad representation from the other ones, but you already know. This is the Lorraines, this is the Yugiohs, and this is the Zanders and the Tristans. Taking a look at our element breakdown, I'm a fan of pie charts. Fire, right? Fire took up a good portion of the general pie chart here, 39 total decks. But we also had a good representation from wind. Now, in the top cut, the representation wasn't so good. There were 19 fire decks in top cut. I mean, you know, Rally Abyss, am I right? That's basically what it boils down to. We didn't have a whole lot of advanced element decks. This looks like about 9 total advanced element decks that were in the tournament. And then 2, 4, 5 advanced element decks made it to top cut. Now, whether you want to say that's a good amount or a bad amount, I think that still leaves a fair amount of room for diversity, because it doesn't mean that level 3 decks are just running the field. We still have the aggro decks, we still have the lower to the ground decks, as well as the level 3 decks, which is really cool to see. Moving into our champion breakdown, we're going to stay on the bar chart here, because you can see that most people were playing the Spirit of Wind. A couple people here on the Spirit of Serene Winds, most likely some Wind Jin players potentially. For Spirit of Fire, most people are on the regular Spirit of Fire because, I mean, just draw as many cards as possible. But there was a fair bit of people on both Fragmented Spirit as well as the Spirit of Serene Fire. So if you total that up, that's 12 people on non-regular Spirit of Fire. Taking a look at our champions, yeah, I mean, Lorraine is the big one here. Lorraine for aggro, Lorraine for level 3 strats. I mean, that is to no surprise at all. Tristan staying with the high representation, but unfortunately not a lot making it in the top cut. Only one Tristan making it in the top cut. A lot of people came with Zander, and a good portion of them converted. And unfortunately, no Arisanas converted. Yugioh was another big one to show up. Had 12 total decks, 4 made it in the top cut, and then Ciel with 1 making it in the top cut. And unfortunately, no Diana, other dilettantes, making it in the top cut. If we take a look at the level 2 champions, for those that were playing it, the ones that made it in, obviously were the ones playing Lorraine Blademaster. That is your aggro decks, because they can play Lorraine too, why not? As well as your level 3 decks. The Tristan decks that did make it here, just the one, obviously you're playing the entire lineage. For the ones also who are playing Lorraine, your level 1 Lorraine here, yeah, you can see here's the people playing Merlin Memory Thief, so a pretty decent split between Merlin and Lorraine Blademaster. But not a lot of Merlins converting into top cut, only 2 Merlins converted. Taking a look at the level 3 breakdown, most of these decks are not in top cut. We see there was a Lorraine Crux. You can't see it on the bar chart here, it is hidden, but there are 3 Lorraine Crux Knights in the top cut. I was looking for it before and I couldn't find it. No, where's Lorraine? Spirit Ruler is like somewhere here. She did not make it in the top cut. Most people are playing Ensoul, they're playing Crux Knight, and it makes sense. On the Merlin side, there are 2 Merlins here, 3 Zanders in top cut, which was nice. And like I said, no Arisanas, unfortunately, and just not a lot of level 3. Most of the level 3 decks that converted were Merlin, Zander, the 1 Tristan, and Crux Knight. And then we also have a Silvie over here. Shout out to that 1 Silvie player. So now if we hop into the deck list, we're going to focus on top cut to try to keep this video to a reasonable level. So these are the top cut results. These are what players finished on day 1 with Swiss. I believe you were required a minimum of, I'm probably going to be wrong, but I want to say 14 points is what you required to make top cut. So most players had 17 points heading into day 2. Those were the players that qualified. We already went through the archetype breakdown, so we're just going to take a look at some of the decks that top. We're not going to go through every deck because we would be here all day, but we're going to take a look at some of the decks that I find interesting, or some of the decks that I think you guys should keep your eyes on. The first deck, and maybe we'll start with the top 8 and then we'll fall back to the top cut decks. But first, obviously, you guys might have seen the video from Creative Shock on Kentucky Fried Suzaku, which is basically just Guoja getting outbird, dealing direct damage with a lot of this stuff. And then if they get to the point where they haven't killed you yet, well, the bird with, where is it? It's somewhere here. And if they get to the point where they haven't killed you yet, well, don't worry. The bird with peppered chef, hence the Kentucky Fried Suzaku, will do you in. So this deck made use of the Rile the Abyss package because why not? I mean, card draw is good, right? You get your liminal guides. You do run Guoja level 2, which is useful. So you're not just going into level 1, then you've kind of got air quote dead cards in hand. You can always get your liminals out on your Guoja level 2 with Undying Dreams. Of course, it is floating memory, but it also gives a buff counter and can also give a +1/1. So essentially like a half a buff counter to your liminal guide for being ephemeral. But also note that in this deck, they are running the Vengeful Paramour. No Incinerated Templar to bring this out, but just the fact that you can ephemerate this from your grave for 4 means that Undying Dreams, so this comes out to do 2 damage and then it swings for 2, but if you do Undying Dreams, it would go for 4. Between Liminal and Vengeful, like that's just really freaking good. It's playing a lot of the other like fire aggro cards, right? We've got the Demolitions to deal damage. We've got the Vermilion Decree, the Sparkle Light. We've got the Peppered Chef. So the big combo pretty much is your Fabled Ruby Fate Stone here. Can I flip this? I can't flip it to the other side. So I couldn't pull the card up separately, so I had to go on the index to pull this card up. But basically, Suzaku is only a 4/3, but on banish, because obviously when it leaves, it gets banished. You may banish 3 fire element cards from your grave. If you do, you return Suzaku to the field as transformed, and it comes in awake. So the big combos, you do 4 damage here, and then you go Peppered Chef, which is going to sack the Suzaku, get +2, so this deals another 4. And then the Suzaku comes back to deal 4 more. So in total, on that one turn, you did 12 damage, which is a lot. Comboed in with just the idea of what the deck is doing, basically nothing's going to stand in your way. You've got Shatter the Brittle to get rid of pesky items or things that you don't like. Maybe it's something like a, what's it called? A Tariff Ring, or a Nullifying Lantern, because that is something that can affect this deck as well. No, you don't get to do that. That's essentially what that card reads. Restorative Flame is really nice to be able to recover because you're playing, I mean, what? I would say almost 90% of your deck is fire cards. Restorative Flame is just free access to recover 6, which is cracked for a really heavy damage dealing fire deck. So yeah, that is Kentucky Fried Suzaku. Shout out to Silvie.gg. I love that they have this right here. You can get an idea on what decks cost. Yes, this deck is definitely on the more expensive end, costing around $400. I can tell you a lot of the cost is right here. This is $70. And then the other chunk of the cost is right here in liminals. I don't know what they're at right now, but I'm going to assume that this card is 50 a pop. So between Liminals and Grand Crusader's Ring, you're looking at like $250 to $270. And then the rest of the deck is actually kind of decently cheap at like $130. Mind you, you don't have to play Liminals with this deck. It's just really good because Rile the Abyss is really good. But you can also end up playing Creative Shocks if you were trying to try this on the more budget end. Replace the Creative Shocks with, or replace the Rile the Abyss with Creative Shocks. You put in some other type of floating memory. You can still play the Vengeful Paramour because that's still a good card. Shit, you can even still play Rile the Abyss without the Liminals. Yeah, it doesn't feel as good, but it still does something. You can discard another copy of Rile the Abyss for its own effect. So next up, we've got Fire Luxem Zander. Very, very expensive deck. And we'll hop in and we'll see why this is expensive deck. Grand Crusader's Ring, we've got Backup Charger, not expensive, but we've got 3 different ways to draw cards. If you guys have seen the Staples video yet, you'll know I said you can play Grand Crusader's Ring, Backup Charger, and Portentous Tangoon one deck if you just want to draw a lot of cards, and that is exactly what this Zander deck wanted to do. They have not only those 3 cards, but also the Chalice of Blood to just say, yeah, we're trying to draw a lot of cards. If you're trying to deal us damage, we're going to heal a lot. They run the Spirit of Serene Fire in this to make Zander effectively a 31 health champion. They're just trying to stay alive as much as possible and then really go for the kill turn with the Lightweaver's Assault, which reveals all cards in memory. Choose any amount of units, deal damage equal to the amount of cards you reveal that way. So let's say you're able to put like 6, 7, 8 cards down in memory. You're dealing 6, 7, 8 damage, either divided up amongst your opponent's units or just to your opponent's champion. When you add in Striking Illuminance, which is effectively another Lightweaver's, depending on how you're sequencing your turn, this has 4 base power, but whenever you reveal a Luxem element, it gets an additional power. You can stack that. So if you reveal, let's say 3, 4 Luxem cards, this goes up to dealing 7 to 8. It's really good. So those 2 cards, that's your win con. That's how you're trying to kill. You've got Gleaming Cuts for your draws, Luxem Sights for your recovery. And then this is also running the Spectre package, Rally Abyss, Liminal Guide, the Undying Dreams, and probably Evercurrent Raider is in here somewhere. Or maybe they're not running. No, they're not running Evercurrent Raider. So just relying on 12 cards for that draw engine, which is fine. I mean, it did the job, right? It came in second at Top Cut. We've got Resolute Stance because Zander's just trying to stay alive until it gets into level 3 and then it can stabilize. And 4 Incaps, one of a really good card in the game is Zander plays this for only 2 and it just negates target action card activation, which is really good because, oh, Rally Abyss, negate, Resolute, negate. If you're playing the Mirror, you're not going to negate the Striking Illuminance, but you can negate the Lightweaver's Assault, which is, you know, really good there. So Zander, just a really good late game deck. If it can make it to the late game, good luck making it out of that match because Zander just has access to recovery on deck and a lot of damage dealing every turn if you can't prevent the ping that Lightweavers is going to end up doing to you. So I can tell you this deck is definitely on the more expensive and this particular iteration of the deck because of the Grand Crusader's Ring, the Spirit of Serene Fire. I believe this is currently, the last time I checked, around $40 on TCG Player because it was bought out. So that's 110 right there. You've got Dungeon Guides at basically 100 a play set. You've got Liminal Guides at like 250-ish. So you're already looking at a lot of money there. And then in the sideboard, they've got the Art of War, which says players can't declare attacks with allies that enter the field this turn, which is great for Zander because you're not playing too many allies. All you've got is Dungeon and Liminal. Like that's really all you're ever going to be playing. So you don't care. You want to stop your opponent from swinging as much as possible. So this is really good. And then you can banish it to pay for a memory cost if you need to go for game later, which is good. But Quicksilver Grail is also another card that's eating up a chunk of the cost here. This is about $100 card on its own. The play with this is you go into your level 2 turn and you can do a Quicksilver to grab either your Insignia of the Korhazi or your Luxera's map, whichever one you want. And then that way, if you Dungeon Guide into your level 3, you can still get these cards out. So it makes you not lose tempo. Another play you can do with the Quicksilver is put your Luxera's map under, and then at the end of your opponent's end phase, you can pop your Quicksilver to pop out the Luxera's map because it enters the field rested. Then it passes over to you. Your Luxera's map is now awake, and then you can banish it to get the card you need out of your memory. Not obviously you're going to activate that at slow speed, but it comes into your turn not rested, which is what you want. Next up here, we've got Fire Aggro Guoja. Now this one is also playing Suzaku. This is another iteration of Fire, Kentucky Fried Suzaku, because they play a lot of the same cards, but this one is just a little bit different. This one is playing Sadie's. I mean, Sadie is just really good because it's a 2/2 stat line and it's just going to bounce itself to hand anytime it would be, damaged, removed, etc. You just pay 2 and just say, oh, you were going to damage me, you're going to remove me. Ha, nope. 2/2 is also a decent stat line. It's able to get rid of a lot of units, and comboed in with what you're playing in this deck, the fact that you can deal direct damage to units, you can basically take anything out and then just finish them off with Sadie and just play Sadie every turn. The other big thing is that because it returns to your hand, you put a preparation counter on your champion, which lets you play something like Thieving Cut, which just lets you swing with Guoja prepare 1 on hit. If it was prepared, you draw a card. So Sadie kills something. Oh, you're gonna remove it, bounce it back to hand. Now I can do Thieving Cut, draw a card, and also deal you damage. It's just more ways of doing the fire aggro thing. Now this deck plays Suzaku's command, whereas the first place deck did not. This card says target beast ally next attack gains unblockable and it gets +2 power for the turn. If it's a Shenju, it gets an additional 2 and combat damage dealt by this unit is unpreventable, which means that your Fabled Ruby Fate Stone that turns into your Suzaku, instead of dealing 4, it comes in for 8, which is nasty. When you add in what Peppered Chef, which this deck is not playing the Peppered Chef, but if you look at if you decide to play those cards together, Suzaku, you attack with Suzaku's command, it's coming in for 8, then you Peppered Chef, and then let's just say you have another one. I mean, even just on 1, normally you did 12, now you did 16. That's like a 1-turn kill if you have all those cards in hand, which is kind of crazy. Now you can see that this deck is also a little bit on the more expensive end. I can tell you that's because Sadie's, I don't know what they're at right now, but I think the last time they were about 30 bucks. That's 120 for your play set. You don't need to play those cards. Vermilion Decrees are about, I want to say they were at $10. So that's 40 for the play set. I don't know what Rococo's are sitting at right now. Those might be, they can be anywhere from like $10 to $20. And that's where like the chunk of the cost is sitting as well, because we don't have very heavy, high-costed cards in the sideboard. And outside of the GCR, the majority of the cost is lying, so I'm pretty sure it's between Sadie and Rococo's where that cost is lying. So you can definitely play this deck on a more budget. So you can definitely play this deck on more of a budget as well if you had wanted to. Next up, we've got Ensoul. I already know you're like, damn, this is another expensive deck. Well, we're going to tell you why this is or is not an expensive deck. Hey, guess what? It's GCR. If you have this card, that cost goes down because you can play it in every deck. These cards, all cheap. Nothing else in your material deck is really expensive. It's just GCR. But I can tell you that this deck is expensive because of this card right here and this card right here. That is the common reoccurring trend, because those 2 cards alone make up for $350. But the other big one is Ghost of Pendragon, which has went up in price a lot. This is a 4-of for this. Well, actually, this person's only playing it at 3, which is interesting. But regardless, even at 3, I believe this card was sitting at around 40 to 50 bucks. So that's like 120 to 160 bucks. I would pick up a playset, so that's like $200. And this is the bulk of where your cost is sitting. If you want to play Crux Knight or Spirit Ruler Lorraine, you're trying to play Crux. Typically, any Crux deck you play, you're going to want to play Ghost of Pendragon, because the card is only a 2-cost ally that says on enter, you return a regalia you control the owner's material deck. If you do, you draw 2 cards. And has a 3/4 stat line, which is as annoying to deal with as Frostborn Paladins for 2 cost, and it draws you 2 cards. Card is crazy good. The win con of this deck, however, is Spirit Blade Ensoul, which says choose any amount of sword weapons, the memory cost of 1 or less from banishment and or material deck, and put them onto the field until the end of turn. Sword weapons you control can attack as though they were allies, and at the beginning of your next end phase, you sacrifice all sword weapons you control. So as you can see, this is the deck that plays 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1-cost or less swords. Sorry, this is a Spellword Scepter, it's not a sword. My bad. So this is a deck that plays 6 total swords. These swords are going to come in and do a lot of damage. The big plays that, swing, die. The Convenon is going to do a lot of damage on when it goes out. And then you've got Votive Runeblade, which is going to combo with Crux Knight. So by the time you're swinging with Votive Runeblade, you have 5 swords in banishment. So your Crux Knight attack gets +5 power, plus the 1 off of here for 6. So basically, Ensoul can kill you in 1 turn if everything goes to plan. Something that's good against this deck is something like Resolute Stand, to say, all right, cool, those swords, they're not going to do anything until they all hit banishment, and then I can just swing with Crux Knight and still deal some damage, but you're not going to kill me this turn. Spellword Scepter is here. It says the activation of the next card you activate this turn can't be negated, which is good for making sure that you can Ensoul and try to end game on that, because if you get Ensouled after, or if you get negated after paying 6 for your Ensoul, okay, turn over, I guess. But the deck also plays Flame Sweeps to keep things in control, as well as Devastating Blows, because, I mean, this is still going to come in for a total of 7 damage when you're at level 3, which is nasty. Very, very nasty. And it's a fire deck, so, you know, like I said, with the Liminal, you're playing the Rally Abyss, you're playing the Creative Shock, and you're playing Cremation Ritual in this as well. You're trying to draw cards, because you love card draw in this deck. In the sideboard, the cost of this deck definitely goes up. Launches are maybe 25, 30 bucks, which this deck plays too. And then you've also got 2 Heavenly Guides. I learned how this card plays, which is really cool. So it says level 2 bonus is that on enter, if your opponent controls a non-spirit champion with a card on top of its lineage that wasn't played, level up your champion. What that means is if your opponent DG'd or Ignis Deus, I think, into their champion, you can play this and then level up into your champion without paying any cost, but only if your opponent did something like a DG. And then the Blanche is basically if another unit you control would be dealt non-attack damage, you prevent an amount of that damage equal to the amount of cards in your memory, which is really good for stuff like Suzaku and whatnot, especially because this deck doesn't play Clarent because it's Ensoul. So these are also eating up a lot of costs. I believe Heavenly Guides were up to maybe 30, 40 bucks. And yeah, this deck, this particular iteration is expensive, but you can also play this on a more budget. Do I recommend playing any like fire deck without Liminal Guides? I mean, no, not necessarily, but if you don't have the money for it, don't worry about it. You're just trying to get into the game, pick up your Creative Shocks, forget about Liminal Guides, but do pick up your Dungeon Guides. Definitely pick up your Dungeon Guides. So here we've got a Fire Aggro Lorraine list, also clocking in at $700. And, you know, just like I've been telling you, don't worry, we're going to talk about why it's that expensive. Well, first of all, you got Looking Glass right here. It's about 70 to 80 bucks. This is your Divine Relic. This says if it's in your starting material deck, you may begin the game with it on the field and you ignore the elemental requirements of distortion cards you play. This deck, right, already off the bat, plays 3 Distortion Regalia, one of which is the Sword of Shadows, which is a 1/2, but for a class bonus, it gets +1. As long as your opponent controls an ally with stealth, it gets -1. It's the opposite of Sword of Seeking, you know, it's really cool. The Inert Sword is a 2/2. You don't get the class bonus because that's for Guardian, but it is a 2/2, which is fantastic. As an additional cost to materialize the weapon, you pay to reserve. And then Consumption Ring is a card I like a lot. Until the end of turn, non-ally cards your opponent activate cost 4 more to activate. That means, I mean, for a lot of decks, right? Especially for something like Fire Aggro where they're dealing a lot of the direct damage. Consumption Ring just says, pay, buddy, you gotta pay for that cost. So I like Consumption Ring a lot, and that is enabled because you are playing the Looking Glass. Now, this is yet another deck that is also using Liminal Guide, which means they're playing Rowdy Abyss, which means they're playing the Vengeful Paramour, and this one is playing the Incinerated Templar. This card's really good because it says you put target Spectre ally card with a reserve cost 3 or less from grave onto the field. It becomes ephemeral, and then you sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end phase. So the play here is this is a 6 damage play. You play Templar. Templar brings out Paramour, which says on enter as a spell. If it's ephemeral, deal 2 damage, and then you swing for 2. So you swing for 2 here. This comes out to deal 2, and then you do 2 more. That's 6 damage total. If you actually, this deck isn't playing the Undying Dreams, which is interesting. They're not even playing, they are playing the Rally Abyss. It's interesting that they're, I guess, because most of your things are costing, yeah, everything costs 0 in this deck. The only thing that costs 1 is a Smoke Bombs, which if you're going to get out Smoke Bombs, you don't care what you're going to banish anyways. So that makes sense that they're not playing basically any floating memory. But when they do level up into Lorraine 1, if they have the Liminal, yeah, they're going to get the ability for this to come out and do stuff. But the other cool thing is that Incinerated Templar still can bring out Liminal from trash. So even if you level up into level 1, it's not like Liminal is dead in hand. It's not just like, oh, I gotta play this for 3, and then it's just this stupid 1/3 ally that doesn't do anything. You can use this as your discard fodder for Rowdy Abyss, and then use Templar to bring this out. And it's ephemeral. It doesn't get you to card draw, but it still gets you another ally on field that's doing 1 damage every turn, and your opponent has to answer it, which is, you know, pretty good. This particular Lorraine deck is running the Dazzling Courtesan, which is Kindle. Kindle means that you can pay for the cost by banishing fire element cards from your grave, and it comes in as a 2/2. You've got Clumsy Apprentice, which deals 2 damage to your champion, but draws you a card as a 1/1. One of the, I guess, key combos in this deck, or kind of like the mainstay card, is probably Arthur Young Ear. says you may rest Arthur if you do, it gains immortality. That's whatever. If you do this on a turn 1 play, you just do it so that they can't snipe it, and then you have it for your next turn. As long as Arthur is rested, other allies you control get +1 power. So this is a 2-3 stat line, 3 making it just a bit harder to deal with. Comes in for only 2. However, you have March here. That is a 1-drop 1/1, but it is a unique ally, right? You've got red here, which says Pride 3, but as long as you control a fire element or Terra, unique human ally, which guess what? Yes, I know March here looks like a rabbit, but he's an assassin animal human rabbit. Because why not, right? That means March here and Arthur both mean that you can swing with red here, which is a whopping 3/3 because it loses pride and it has on attack. You may discard a card if you do draw a card. This is your fire aggro hasty messenger with a way better stat line for the same 2 cost, which is what makes this really good. Red here, March here, and Arthur. That means you swing Arthur for 2. You drop the red here, you swing for 4 actually because of Arthur. That's 6 damage. You can drop the March here and swing for 7. Then they're like, all right, I got to remove March here. So you remove March here. Oh, hey, element bonus. Whenever this card is banished from grave to pay for reserve cost, you put it onto the field. Oh, hey, I played Dazzling Courtesan. Oh, hey, Arthur, red hair is on the field. You remove this, but they're playing Dazzling Courtesan. Now this comes back out and they have Dazzling Courtesan. So now not only did they deal you 6 damage off of red hair and Arthur, now Courtesan comes in to deal 2 more, that's 8. March hair comes back in and deals 9. And then, oh look, Templar brings out Paramour, you're dealing 2, you got Vermilion Decree. Or hey, because you're playing Lorraine and you've got these swords, she can swing, but you've also got Honed by Fire to make those weapons bigger, or Rending Flames to say, all right, cool, instead of 2 damage, you're going to take 4. If you Honed by Fire and then Rending Flame, instead of 4 damage, you're going to take 8. I know I'm saying a lot and I'm speaking really fast. It's because I've gotten murked by this deck a lot. So I'm just really familiar with the way that this deck plays. And it basically, the goal, like this is really fire aggro at its finest. It's just trying to kill you as fast as possible by applying heavy pressure and trying to keep board as much as possible. Because you see, this isn't the one dealing a lot of direct damage. Sure, they have Vermilion Decree. Sure, they have Vengeful Paramour. But they're really just going to kill you by putting allies on the board. And if you can't deal with the allies in time, the allies will overwhelm you. So the last big thing to look at is this deck is playing Cheshire Cat Impish Grin, which is nasty for a fire aggro deck. And let me tell you why. Love this card. So it has Spell Shroud and Stealth, meaning that it can't be targeted unless you have True Sight and Spell Shroud. You can't target this for spells, which means to remove this card, you got to either cleave the board or have a True Sight unit. It gets power plus X, where X is the base power amongst distortion weapons you control. So when you go into your Lorraine 1, let's say you get out the Inert Sword, that means Cheshire Cat's going to be base 3/3. On your next turn, if you get out the Sword of Shadows, Cheshire Cat is now a 4/3, which is absolutely nasty to deal with. But in addition to that, Cheshire Cat has the activated abilities of Distortion Regalia you control, which combos very nicely with the Consumption Ring. What this means is that you can swing. Let's say, right, you swing, you have the Consumption Ring on board, you swing, you deal 3 damage. Goes to your opponent's turn. You can choose, instead of banishing Consumption Ring, you banish the Cheshire Cat because it has the activated ability and it just says banish. Banish Cheshire Cat, boom. You activate that ability on your opponent's turn. You still get to keep your Consumption Ring to activate on another turn, meaning that, oh, hey, whatever your opponent was gonna do, yeah, they gotta pay a lot more. And that is really disgusting. A really disgusting combo. That's also why this deck costs a lot, because I believe this is like $25 a pop. So yeah, really, really good deck here. So we have another fire Kentucky Fried Suzaku deck list, which is basically the same one that we saw in the beginning. And do you know why? It's because it's What Do You Min and JR, which are Creative Shock. So of course their decks are very similar, if not the same. I haven't compared them side by side, but you can just take what I said for the other Kentucky Fried Suzaku list and apply that here. Tomato, tomato in this case. We've got another Fire Aggro Lorraine list, so I won't go over this too much because this is another deck that is kind of like the other one we went over. They've got the same Cheshire Cats. The only big difference pretty much is Blazing Throw, which I don't believe I saw in the other one, as well as the Flame Rune Swordsman. So fire aggro doing fire aggro things. The last top 8 deck is a Tristan deck that skirted its way into the top 8. This is Wind Tristan. Wind is definitely the best element to play Tristan in. This deck is around $660 some, running Grand Crusader's Ring, Dungeon Guides, but also some of these wind cards are expensive, like Ensnaring Fumes. Those are maybe like 10 a pop. Asin Protectors are $10 for the 3 copies. I think it was around $3 for each the last time I checked. So Tristan's whole thing is, I mean, like most level 3 decks, right? You want to get into your level 3 to be able to do things. Her level 3 says that on enter, you summon 2 Ominous Shadow tokens and you put a prep counter on Tristan. The Ominous Shadow tokens aren't here, so I'm going to pull it up real quick. So the Ominous Shadow has unblockable, which means that its attacks can't be intercepted and it ignores taunt. If damage will be dealt to it, you prevent 3 of that damage, which means like cleave attacks. You have to come in for a big cleave to try to get rid of the shadow. But the only downside is that they can only declare attacks against units your champion has dealt combat damage to this turn, which means if you negate the combat damage that Tristan would do, the Ominous Shadows can't swing into it. So that's what makes Tristan Shadow Dancer really good. And the thing is with Shadow's Claw right here, as long as you have 4 more prep counters on your champion, you can activate it from your material deck, which is 0 cost. So you just get it out for free. Fantasia allies you control can attack using Shadow Claw. When they do, you put a durability counter on it, which means that the only one who's really using this weapon and depleting its durability is Tristan herself, which means you basically get 3 turns use out of this, and your shadows get to use it for free, which means your shadows come in for base 2. The big combo here is either Slice and Dice or Shadow Strike. We'll go over Slice and Dice first, which is prepare 3. If it was prepared, you may have the attacker declare an additional attack. So let me talk through the card before I talk through the combo. If you do, you create a copy of Slice and Dice in that attacker's intent, except it isn't prepared and it gets +3 power. So what you do is you swing with Tristan. You typically use the Shadow's Claw. So it's going to come in for base 1. Now Slice and Dice has 3 base power, so it's coming in for 4. If you prepare it, you create another copy. So now Tristan can attack again. This time it's coming in for not 4, but a total of 7 damage, right? Because it's an additional 3 power it gets. That's 10 damage total that 1 Slice and Dice is doing. And then your Fantasia allies get to attack using the Shadow's Claw. So they follow up for essentially 4 more points of damage, doing 14 damage on 1 Slice and Dice. On most turn 3s, this is kill because you're typically applying pressure to your opponent throughout the entire game, whether it's with Sadie or with something else that, yeah, you're going to kill them on the Slice and Dice. But the other combo that the deck has access to is Shadow Strike, which has Prepare X, where X can't be 0. And it just gets +X, where X is the amount that you prepared it with. It also has a class bonus that if it was prepared, it has unblockable with base 4 power. So just like Slice and Dice, let's say you prepare this with 4, right? That means base it's swinging in for 8 and it's unblockable, which, yeah, it's not doing the 10 damage that a Slice and Dice can do, but it is still presenting a lot of damage to your opponent. And when you think about cards like the Windmill Engineer that is just going to ping for 1 every turn, and then you're going to bounce this back to hand with stuff like Reclaim and Asin Protector, like you're going to end up accumulating so much damage over the course of the match that once Tristan gets into level 3, I mean, you're as good as dead at that point, right? Which checks out for this deck because it's an assassin deck and it should be able to do things like that. So Windmill Engineer is a really good card for any wind strat. If it's imbued, imbue means that you reveal cards. If they're the element of the card that you're imbuing, you draw a card into your memory. You then bounce this back to your hand with something like Reclaim, which has floating memory, so you get a free card draw, and then you get this card back, you get Floating and Trash to level up, then you can play it again, or you can use Asin Protector to come in as a 3/4 intercept. That is also, because it's such a heavy stat line, use it to retaliate, use it to just swing into your opponent and deal 3 damage. Sadie, we talked about earlier, is even better in an assassin deck because the class bonus is on kill. You get agility 3, and agility means at your end step, you return 3 cards from your memory to your hand. So you pay for Sadie, she comes in, she kills something, then at the end of your turn, you pull 3 cards back into your hand, which is good because guess what? You've got 4 in caps in this deck too. And that just gives you the flexibility to do a lot of things. This deck is also playing Mastermind Scheme, which is going to double the amount of prep counters on your champion, and if there are 8 or more, you gain agility 3 for the turn, efficiency that it costs less. So this is good to make sure that your slice and dice you have preparation counters for, or you can just come in for a big shadow strike attack. You've got the Ensnaring Fumes, which is good against aggro, bounce all allies to their owner's hands. This is fast action, and you can remove preparation counters from your champion to pay for the cost. Really good, right? Just, okay, cool. You're coming in with all these allies, get them back into your hand. I'm not trying to deal with them. This deck plays 2 Beseech the Winds. This is an expensive card right now, and for right reason. Materialize a card from your material deck. It's kind of like an extra dungeon guide, but it also gives you access to anything else in your material deck. It doesn't just say like, materialize polearm for Jin only gets a polearm. This just says, cool, get anything you want from your deck. You still have to pay the cost, but you can get anything. You can get an extra draw off a Grand Crusader's Ring, or you can get out the Safeguard Amulet because you need it to go into your level 2, and now boom, you get that and a Safeguard, which is really good. One of the other really good cards that this deck has access to because it's wind is Stifling Trap, which says deal 2 damage to target ally and then negate all on-answer triggers from that ally. So if an ally comes in, like let's say, it's just the example I'm going to use, and it's a bad example, but it's the example I'm going to use. You're playing the mirror, they drop a Windmill Engineer, you can Stifling Trap. The thing is with on-answers is when the ally enters the field, the on-answer enters the stack. So even if the ally gets removed, you still get the on-answer. But with Stifling Trap, you deal 2 damage, right? So you would remove the ally, but they would still get the on-answer. But this says then negate all on-answer triggers from that ally. So now you remove the ally and you negate the on-answers. This is also really good against opposing dungeon guides, which is really good, right? Because cool, you may get to keep the dungeon guide, but you don't get to level up. Stifling Trap, bane of my existence. Very good card. 2 more cards we'll take a look at here. Dream Fairy. Dream Fairy is a nasty card that says return target ally you don't control to its owner's memory. Opponents can't activate cards with that ally's name as long as you control Dream Fairy, and it has stealth. So unless you have a true sight weapon, you don't have access to that ally for the rest of the game. Now, yes, you can ping this with damage or you can cleave it, but most times you do this, you're doing this at an early state in the game, and it's gonna mess up your opponent's plays a little bit. So Dream Fairy, really good card. And then we've got Veiling Breeze, which is, oh my goodness, so good for wind. Reveal any amount of wind element cards from your memory until the end of turn. Whenever damage will be dealt to your champion, you prevent an amount of damage equal to the amount of cards you revealed this way. So let's say you go through your whole turn, you pay like 4 or 5, and you have 5 cards in memory. You can then Veiling Breeze. You're now preventing 6 damage, whether it's combat or non-combat. Of course, if it says unpreventable, you can't prevent it, but I mean, Veiling Breeze costing 1 fast action, just a really good card. I really like where Tristan's at. I think Tristan is a fantastic deck, and I mean, as you can tell by the charts here, yeah, people were trying to play Tristan. Tristan's here somewhere. Yeah, people were trying to play Tristan. Only 1 person made it to top cut, but they were definitely trying. A lot of people do love Tristan. Now, we went through the top 8 decks and we're pretty far into the video, so I don't want to keep it going for too much longer. So I'm not going to go through all of these decks, but we will go over Fire Suited because it's a cool deck and you should know about it. We'll go over Merlin because another cool deck and you should know about it. And we're going to go over Ciel. Now, Ciel, I can already tell you that you can pop over to the Creative Shock channel and you can take a look at their video that Limelight made on Advent Ciel, and you can get a better insight than what I can provide. And then we'll take a look at Silvie and then we'll close this video out. So yeah, you're around for the long haul, buddies. So this deck here is Suited Lorraine. This is running clearance really good into basically aggro because you just get to remove a durability counter and prevent 2 damage that you would take, 2 non-combat damage that you would take for the entire turn, and it gains Spell Shroud, which is fantastic. But what Suited does is it plays all of the 2 of spades, the 2 of hearts, 3 of hearts, etc. And you just overwhelm the board and you get abilities for putting cards on the board, right? So you have the Noir Ace of Spades, which gets an ability based on the total reserve cost of suited objects you control. And as long as you control another suited ally, she has stealth. So that comboed with the other one, where is it? Oh, it's right next to it. Rouge, Ace of Hearts. Same thing, depending on the amount of suited objects you control, choose a unit, deal 2, 4, or 8 damage, which is really good. Getting these cards out, they all have the different cardistry abilities. We're not going to go through all of them. If you're interested in this deck, definitely hop in and take a look at it. Just know that each card is unique in what it's capable of doing. Some cards draw, some cards get a power buff like the 5 of spades. Some cards just give a life bonus. You've got the Verida, Queen of Hearts, which says you can banish 3 or more suited allies with total reserve cost of 10 from your graveyard rather than pay for its cost. Other suited allies you control have immortality, which is cracked, crazy good. She comes in as a 4/4 herself. And then on death, suited allies you control get +1 power until the end of your next turn. I mean, she's the queen, right? Rightfully so. That's the ability to say, like, I have now arrived. All of my minions, they're immortal. I've now been removed, and my minions will try to kill you on the next turn. I think Suited is a really cool deck, and if you do want to play this deck, you got to play it. You got to figure out the lines, because there's just so much different possibilities and what you're capable of doing. I would say this kind of, I mean, sure, like this can play like an aggro deck, and it is meant to be like aggro in that front, but I feel like it has a sort of different maybe floor for the deck, because it's not just doing fire aggro things. It just has inherently a different strategy to it that enables you to kind of be flexible depending on what you want the deck to do into the meta. I like the idea. I love these allies when I saw them, and I like the idea of this deck a lot, especially with playing Lorraine, right? The best way to really utilize them is somebody who is going to be able to attack herself, be able to protect all of your units if she so pleases, and just give you value off of something like deflecting edge, which says it costs 1 less to activate if you control a sword weapon. Oh, hey, cool. I get 1 on materialize, and I have something like clearance. And prevent the next 3 attack damage that would be dealt to target unit this turn, which means you can prevent things from dying for 0 cost, because it costs 1 less to activate, right? Like, really good. I like this deck a lot. I love the idea of this. I think Consumption and Cheshire Cat in the sideboard is fantastic. I would play this in main board. I know that this deck, you know, the first event for a lot of people, like first major event, trying to figure out what's what and do things, but those are cards that like I would want in my main board, because I'm just trying to be as annoying as possible. I get Cheshire Cat on board turn 1, turn 2, and then I just got this Harasser with the Consumption Ring Man. And see, this deck is only $222. The main cost here is coming from, this is 80 bucks Looking Glass. And then you've got the Cheshire Cats at maybe, what, I think 25 a pop. And they're running 3 of those, so that's 75. So yeah, that's like $150. Otherwise, this is a really cheap deck to build. So definitely check that out if you like that. Next up, we've got Merlin. Now, for those of you who know what Merlin does, you don't even need me to explain it to you. But for those of you who don't know what Merlin does, Merlin is kind of like the ultimate, maybe it's not the ultimate, but it seems like it can be the ultimate sort of mid-range deck. Because this deck does whatever you want it to do, kind of. Merlin level 3. Merlin Kingslayer is a mage warrior. And at the beginning of your recollection phase, you put a level counter on Merlin. If there's an even amount of level counters on her, you draw a card and her attacks get +2 power until the end of turn. So I'll tell you, you can win the game in basically like one of 3 ways. Number 1, you fireball them to death. Number 2, you swing because you get swords because you play Lorraine 1. So you either pull your Sword of Seeking, well, you only pull your Sword of Seeking, but you also have Prismatic and Drawn Blade. You swing the sword with the attack. You have the Sudden Steal, which has efficiency. So base, this is going to come in for 3, but it can be less because of the level counters. And that comes in for 5 base power. So comboed with, if you're doing it on an even turn, that's 7 power with a sword that is anywhere between 8 to 10 damage because of Prismatic and what it represents. And then the third thing is, you play Ghost of Pendragon in this deck. This deck is expensive because you play 4 Ghost of Pendragon. Like, Ghost, really good card, right? And you also play the Majestic Spirit, which Merlin has access to because of the Incarnate Majesty. I know I'm bouncing around a lot. I apologize. If it is jarring you guys, let me know down in the comments and I'll try to mitigate it in the future. This card has efficiency, and then it costs 1 less to activate for each Regalia weapon card in your banishment. You just put Majestic Spirit from your material deck or banishment onto the field. So typically if you play this, let's say you're level 6 with Merlin, then you've got like 1 or 2 swords in banishment. That means you do play, does this deck play? It does not play the Fluffy Shopkeeps, unfortunately. But let's say you have 1 or 2 weapons in banishment. This card can play for anywhere between 4 to 6. You get out the Majestic Spirit, which has Intercept, True Sight, and Vigor. Vigor meaning you stand up at the end phase. Champions you control have Spell Shroud, meaning that Merlin can't be targeted by aggro decks with their direct damage things. And if another Crux element unit you control would take damage, prevent half of that damage rounded up, which is really good. Now it's like, okay, cool. I will, let's say, refracting missile you for 4. First of all, you can't do that because Spell Shroud. But let's say they have something that would deal damage on enter, right? Like an ally. You prevent half of that damage rounded up. You're going to take 5. Nope. You have it, and then you round up, so you only take 3. This is also a 4/10, right? So 4 damage every turn is a lot. 10 health, 10 life on intercept means that this is just going to sit there and absorb everything that your opponent throws at you. And even more importantly, right? Because it says another Crux element unit, your Ghost of Pendragon also get that buff. Meaning that like once the deer hits the field, good luck. You probably have lost. Not always, but I mean, I would say what, like 8 times out of 10? Like deer is such a good card for Merlin that is just like, yeah, this is why this deck is really good. It plays some of the same base that a standard Lorraine deck does because it uses Lorraine level 1 as its champion, but it differs in its endgame. Whereas Lorraine wants to just swing out to endgame, Merlin can just fireball, which has 2 less to activate for class bonus because Merlin level 3 is a mage warrior. So this costs 2, and if you're level, let's say 6, you're going to deal 7 damage off of a fireball at fast speed for a cost of 2. You're going to have the deer sitting on the field. You're going to have the Ghost of Pendragon. You're going to apply so much pressure once you get into Merlin 3, it's insane. And that's not even to say that Merlin level 2 isn't good. Merlin level 2, choose a card from grave, banish it. If it has floating memory, put a level counter on Merlin. So if your opponent doesn't know, like let's say, you know, you do Lorraine 1, right? And your opponent's like, okay, like I don't know what you're playing because you could be playing like Lorraine, right? You can go into Merlin 2 if they banish, if they put a float in grave, go into Merlin 2, even just DG into Merlin 2. And then because you're running Fragmented Spirit, which says Glimpse 6, draw 6, and then summon a Spirit Shard, that Spirit Shard says level 3 plus ability, you get to draw a card. Guess what? If you eat that float that your opponent put in grave, you are now level 3, and then you can crack your Spirit Shard to draw a card. You can also kind of chill on Merlin 2 for a bit if your opponent isn't respecting, like, you know, the fact that you're playing Merlin before you just go into Merlin 3 and then just start steamrolling in advantage. I would say one of Merlin's biggest weaknesses is aggro, which is why you see Blanche in the sideboard, which is why you see both Crystallized Destiny and Resolute Stand. That's why Deer is so important, because once you get Deer, you can prevent a lot of things. But getting into Merlin 3 and being able to put these units out and apply this heavy pressure is just what makes Merlin so good. Next up, we've got Advent Ciel. Like I said, go check out Creative Shock Limelight's deck profile on Advent Ciel. This deck in particular, what this focuses on, I can tell you right off the bat, is this card right here, Advent of the Stormcaller. I know you might look at this and you might be like, well, like, how do I play that? You don't. You banish this, because Baleful Oblation says deal X damage to all units except for your champion, where X is the lowest reserve cost among your omens. So your goal is to get just Advent of the Stormcaller in your banishment, use Baleful Oblation to just deal 15 damage to your opponent. But this deck also plays Extorting Blackjack, which I like a lot. I just love the idea of a card called Extorting Blackjack, where it says, as long as the total reserve cost amongst your omens is exactly 21, Extorting Blackjack gets plus 10 power. And it also has the class bonus, because it's Ciel, on attack, recover X, where X is the amount of omens you have with different costs. I would say, I don't know how many you would typically get in banishment, but like, you know, 15 plus 6 is 21, right? So let's say you banish 2 3-cost cards. Recover 3 is still really good. Can pull you out of kill range. You are a 30 health champion because you're Ciel, but swinging for 12 is no joke. Dealing 15 damage off of Baleful Oblation is no joke whatsoever. That is the key point of what this deck is trying to do. Hit you for 15, hit you for 12 as a backup plan. They are playing the Inert Sword here, which comes in as a 3/2 sword because of the class bonus for Ciel, which is really good, but also has the Grand Sonnerie. Grande Sonnerie says, as long as the total reserve cost amongst your omens is 10 or greater, Grande Sonnerie gets +2 power and has 3 durability for the sword, which means you got a 3/2 sword and a 4/3 sword. So whether you have a 3/2 or 4/3, this 12 attack now is looking at what, 15 and 16 power, man? Sorry, I'm still getting used to power and attack, life and health. Don't mind me. Advent Ciel is really cool. And this deck is also just kind of really simple. That is the game plan straight up. That is the game plan for what the deck is trying to achieve. I would definitely go check out Limelight's video to see more in-depth information about what the deck is trying to do though. Next up, we've got Silvie. This is slimes, baby. And this isn't just like Spirit of Fire slimes. No. This is Spirit of Slime Silvie. This is true Silvie. Silvie with the slimes. So Silvie's big thing is that she buffs up her slime allies, or well, animal or beast allies, but this particular one, buffing up her slime allies, draw a card, and really just enabling you to ignore the elemental requirements of advanced element slime cards you activate, right? So you have all of these slimes that you play. Storm Slime is your big win con because you deal damage based on the number of slime cards in your banishment, but you also have Ethereal Slime, which is a nasty stealth and true sight unit that on enter, you banish a tamer card from your material deck. If you do, you draw a card and you put a buff counter, so it comes in as a 3/3. You've got Lustrous Slime, which has taunt and recovers you, which is really good. And then we've got the Twilight Slime in the material deck, which says the class bonus for tamer, your champion and other slimes you control have Spell Shroud. So you don't main deck this because you really don't need this all the time, but for the matchups where you want to give things Spell Shroud, yeah, Twilight Slime is really good, and Silvie just lets you play it, ignoring the fact that it's Astra. So Silvie's big thing is really just turbo into level 3 as fast as you can, and then boom, you got Storm Slime on deck. You're trying to, you know, protect your allies with Slime Shield. The cool thing about Slime Shield is that it costs 1 less to activate for the level 2 end class bonus, but also if the unit you play Slime Shield for is a slime ally, then you get a buff counter. Just a free buff counter is really good, especially for slimes where stacking up buff counters can mean a lot. Limitless Slime generates you a buff counter on attack if your opponent doesn't deal with it, or if you're able to protect it when you're at level 3, which is also very nasty. Forest Cake is great for card draw, and then it pairs very nicely with Baby Green. So what your big combo is, you can play, well, not big combo, but one of your combos, you play Forest Cake, draw a card, play Baby Green, suppress it, and then in your end step, Forest Cake comes back and you draw another card. So you get to replace both cards, which is really nice. The other cool thing is that you can banish it when you play a slime, and then you get a buff counter for free again, once again, you know? I love Silvie. I love what this deck does. Silvie is definitely one of my favorite decks in the game. It was the first deck that I played when I got into the game. So it does hold a special place in my heart, especially because Limitless Slime just reminds me of Rimuru from that time I was reincarnated as a slime. So, you know, go figure. Looking at the cost for this deck, it comes in at $312, but I can tell you this is $100 right here. This is where a lot of the cost is. So it comes down to $200. And then you also have cost associated with the, where is it? Quicksilver Grail, that's what I was looking for, which is about another like $90, $100 card. This is good. This, like I said earlier with Zander, banish one of these Terra Element cards, go into Silvie level 3 off of Dungeon Guide, then you can banish Quicksilver Grail to get any of your Terra cards out, which is really good. So in those, essentially in the playset of Dungeon Guides and Quicksilver, you're looking at $220 some. The rest of the deck is about $100. These Terra Element Regalia are really good for Silvie. You got Covenant of Thorns, which can really punish your opponent. You can attach this to anything, whether you want to attach this to a slime, and then you can try to Slime Shield, or you want to attach it to one of your opponent's allies. If damage will be dealt to your champion, damage is dealt to that linked ally instead. So Covenant of Thorns is really nice, and it costs 0 for the class bonus being a tamer. Gaia's Blessing says you can banish 4 animal or beast ally cards from your grave to activate it without paying the cost. You play with the top card of your deck revealed, and you may activate animal or beast ally cards from the top of your deck, which is really good because it effectively gives you an extra card in your hand. You also know what you're going to draw into, which is really important. And it makes cards like Gaia's Songbird all the better because you reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal a beast ally and put that card into your hand. This comes in as a 1-drop 1/2, mind you, which is, I mean, it's just a search and it combos very nicely with Gaia's Blessing, hence the name Gaia's Songbird, you know what I mean? You've got the Horn of Beast Calling, which says the next beast ally card you activate costs 3 less to activate, and you get to draw a card. You got the Stone Scale Band. The next ally card you activate this turn can be activated as though it has fast activation, which is really good. And it also has the On Enter for discard 3 ally cards from your hand or memory and draw that many cards, which is great because then with something like Slime Eruption, you can banish any amount of fire element slime ally cards and up to 2 non-fire element slime ally cards to deal 1 damage for each card you banish this way. And then the last one, Verdant Scepter. On enter, banish a slime ally you control. If you do, you put an amount of refinement counters on Verdant Scepter equal to the banished ally's power +1. So Lustrous Slime, right? It has Pride 5, so you're never going to get to attack with it in this deck. It does have Taunt, so you can just leave it there as a 5-life Taunt. But it also says for each slime card you reveal from your memory, you put a buff counter on her. So let's say you reveal like 3, right? And it becomes a freaking 3/8. Yeah, on death, you can recover X, where X is the amount of buff counters. So you recover 3, but you can also Verdant Scepter, and then you get what? I believe 4 refinement counters. And then the activate abilities that you rested, you remove a refinement counter, you put a buff counter on up to 2 slime element allies you control and draw a card. I love Silvie, man. I love the concept of what this deck does. I love what it goes for. It's a fantastic deck. I know this video is long. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end if you have. If you guys like this video, please do like it, subscribe so that you know when future videos come out, and drop a comment down below letting me know this is the first video in the series and I'm going to wait before I record more to hear the feedback from you guys in terms of what you would want to see out of videos like these. I'm not going to cover every tournament because this is already over an hour and I don't know if I can do these consistently because I just don't have enough time to do the videos and edit them, but I will do them occasionally for sure, especially as I find decks that I'm looking into when I'm doing research, whether it's for my deck building or for other videos. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below what you'd like to see out of future videos, if you guys like this one and what you liked about it. And also let me know what decks excited you that you saw and what you're looking forward to seeing in this Distorted Reflections format. That's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching, and until I talk to you guys the next time, peace out.